should have a message saying that recording progress. Okay, so Jean-Philippe is he's based in Vietnam since what, 2 months? It was very long for him to manage to go to Vietnam, and now he was supposed to do some field mission for Wat4Cam, because he's an expert in the Wat4Cam R4D part. So he was supposed to do some field mission, but as the borders are still closed, we propose to start to have some discussion about crop protection with him, and to start with this kind of meeting. So the first one is very on agroecological crop protection principles. But the second one that we propose on Wednesday will be on a specific way to manage fruit trees, to manage fruit flies, sorry. And so Jean-Philippe has a lot of idea to different kind of training that we could do, that we could be interested. So please, if you have any idea or if you have any question, feel free to discuss, to ask, and I hope this can be good for us to have discussion and to start with this subject. So this is a small introduction. Jean-Philippe, I give you the floor, and thanks to all of you to come and to assess the training.
Thank you very much, Mathilde. I'm also very happy to join the Wat4Cam team, and to start some activities. Of course, indeed, I plan to come to Vietnam for now more than 1 year, and I arrived in Ho Chi Minh City 1.5 months ago, and I am still in lockdown as you, so it's difficult, and I think I guess it's a good idea to start the activities with some discussions, exchanges on my field of activity, which is agroecological crop protection. So you will see, it's not difficult to understand. It's quite easy. Agroecological crop protection is just the application of agroecology principles to crop protection. I have a presentation. I could share my screen. I try.
Ruth, you are still raising your hand. Do you have any question or?
Can you see my presentation?
Sorry, I just had to move it down. No worries. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Yeah, Jean-Philippe, we can see very well.
Okay.
Just how do we do? You will present, or we can interrupt you? We can raise the hand.
Really, as you want. It doesn't disturb me. I can make a presentation. I'm sure I speak a lot, and I'm sure I cannot finish the presentation. But you can interrupt me if you want. There is no problem. Really, no problem. I just want to introduce the series of webinars to say how can we do. Okay, but before that, I would like to stress on some points, bullet points, which look very important for me, and I would like to share them with you. The first thing is that, for example, the webinar of today will be quite theoretical, because we cannot imagine to apply or to implement ACP techniques in the field without well understanding the principle of ACP. So we need to go this way. And today you will see it's not difficult, but we have to discuss what are the principles of ACP before looking what can we do in the field. And I can assure you that, of course, I am a scientist getting new knowledge and so on, but I am also an applied scientist, and my ultimate aim is really to apply new techniques, new solutions in the fields. In this series of webinar, we will have different kinds of presentations, theoretical but also very practical. And the next one, I think it's on Wednesday. It will focus on a technique of sanitation, for example, which is with very practical aspects. So it's just to have a mix of that. We will have also some case studies of ACP applied in some places in the world. We will talk about original techniques, old techniques, new technologies, and so on. And that is a good way, I think, while we are waiting for the end of the lockdown in the area. And after the lockdown, I plan to go to Cambodia and to start with all of you field test, demonstrations, workshops, and so on, to start to implement ACP in the field. I would like also to stress that for me, I am a very senior scientist. I am 61 years old, and it's not what I said when I was younger, but today I am convinced that science alone is nothing. And we absolutely need to share knowledge of scientists, of course, but also knowledge of different actors, and mainly farmers, but also advisors and policers and so on, consumers, of course. And I would also like to say that I have to be modest, and I have to get humility, because the way to take ACP is very difficult. I don't want to say it's easy. We can suppress the pesticide tomorrow and so on. It's difficult, and we have to place the basis of the principle of the ACP before doing anything. And the issues why we want to develop ACP, for example, for local issues, but also for global issues. We have to talk about that, to discuss, to share, and to be convinced that we have to take this way. But it's difficult, and we have to take that in mind. Okay, this slide is just to show that this week we will have two seminars, one on the principles of ACP, and another one on a very practical technique, which is called the use of augmentorium. So today, but I am sure I cannot discuss of all these points. I have two main parts. The first one is very important, is an introduction to ACP. In order to say what is ACP, is a new concept coming from the mind of a dreamer, a scientist dreaming, or is it answering to issues of the world of agriculture? And the second part, I will try to talk about that, but I don't know if we will have sufficient time. But anyway, we will see that later if we have not enough time. It's about the implementation of ACP in the field, because it's quite after 1, 2, 3, or 10 hours or 100 hours of discussion of ACP, we can propose a cooking recipe of ACP to implement in the field anywhere in the world, because it involved generic principles, and of course taking into account the context specific principles. So we see that. But the first part is, why are we talking about ACP? It's the main question, the first question to ask. The first question to ask is not to answer to the question of how do we implement ACP. We just know, we just have to know if ACP is, for example, relevant, is consistent, is compatible with the different context conditions that we need. So in the first part, I will talk very quickly on agroecology first. What is agroecology? My point of view, but a word on crop protection. We could spend several days on this subject also, but it will be a quick overview. And of course, the mix between agroecology and crop protections. I will talk about agroecological crop protection. So first, for agroecology, we have to share observations, and the main observation that we can share is to say that the current agroecosystems are not sustainable for different points of view, different issues. It could be environmental issues, but also socio-economic issues, healthy issues, ecological issues, and so on. Agroecology is known over the world to be an alternative to the conventional agriculture. For example, the United Nations has implemented some goals for sustainable development, and we can look for that. But agroecology has to address two kinds of challenges. Global challenges, of course, such as erosion of biodiversity, such as decrease in the health of the soils everywhere in the world. For example, the climate changes and so on. But also, agroecology is addressing local challenges for local actors. I mean, from farmers to consumers, via policers, via advisors, via scientists, and so on. And so it's from the field to the food system, and agroecology has to meet, to face, to tackle these two kinds of challenges. If you want to stop me, you can. No problem, Mathilde. I stress on that. So agroecology around the world, either in what we call, I don't like this term, but we call northern countries or southern countries, is considered as a realistic alternative to the unsustainable conventional systems. We have to agree on that before starting. If we do not agree, we can stop our collaboration. No, I'm joking, but it's important to have that in mind. if we continue to grow, to do agriculture as we do now, maybe not our generation, but the next generation will not be able to continue to do agriculture. Agroecology, I go very quickly on this point, is the main aim is to make a sustainable functioning of a system, and in fact here it's an agroecosystems, and we consider that at different scales, not only a small plot or a field or a cropping system or an ecosystem, but towards to the whole food systems. And of course, it facilitates the development of ecosystem services and so on. I don't want to spend time on that. I think you know what I mean by that, and I can back to answer some questions if you want. If you see, but yes, at the end of the slide, I stress again on the importance of sharing knowledge between scientists and the local actors, and I think it's exactly the context you have in Cambodia, especially in the What for Cam project, where you have a continuum between for example, farmers to the consumers, and with the different actors, including, of course, scientists. Agroecology has main characteristics, and I have to repeat them. The first is to in the field to facilitate the interactions between communities, animal communities, vegetal communities, and so on, and to provide better ecosystem services. It can also facilitate to take roots from different kinds of agriculture. I will talk after about, for example, organic farming, conservation agriculture, permaculture, and so on. So virtuous kinds, forms of agriculture. Agroecology was also more and more has to promote the local empirical knowledge, the role of organizations of farmers, and the place of women in this framework. And of course, agroecology can make links and facilitate links between agriculture, the fields, and the food system, the food, the consumers, agriculture and environment, science and society, and so on. It covers, of course, the agroecosystem, what we call agroecosystem. It can be a cropping system, but it can also be a landscape or a territory, and also the whole food systems, including the production, of course, but also all the process of transformations, the distribution, the consumption, and also the management of waste. So we could have a lot of debates on that. How could we define agroecology? There are a lot of definitions of agroecology. It can be considered as a set of practices. For example, conservation agriculture is often considered as agroecology by some people. It can be considered as a modes of development. For example, in the United Nations. It's also a social movement, and agroecology was born some decades ago in South America as a social movement by small-scale farmers. It can also be considered as an humanist movement. For example, in France, you have a person, Pierre Rabhi, who is an agroecologist, and he considers first, not only, but first, agroecology as a philosophy, as a way of life, as a humanist movement. Of course, agroecology can be considered as a set of disciplines or in a scientific approach. And more and more, agroecology is considered as a set of policies. We have that, for example, in France, with an official policy of agroecology, but we can see something like that at the global level in the recent report of the high-level panel experts working on agroecology 2 years ago. Anyway, in most of the cases, agroecology is considered as a set of three components: practices, social, movement, and scientific approach. And it's the way I take, because I think it's quite easy to understand that agroecology is not one thing, but it's different components. And the main components can be divided in three parts. First, a set of practices, not only at the field level, but also, for example, at the landscape level. It can be considered as a social set of interaction between stakeholders. It's very important. And also as a set of, as a science, which is an interdisciplinary set of disciplines. And in the middle of these three components, you can consider that you have what we call the transition towards agroecology everywhere in the world. And of course, a lot of projects have this title. And for example, there is a regional project called ASSET. And ASSET means something like transitions towards, I don't know exactly, but towards agroecology in Southwest Asia. So for me, agroecology is that, but we could discuss, it's not only that, but it's quite simple and easy to understand. Of course, because agroecology is an alternative to the conventional agriculture, it's a source of a lot of debates. I will go quickly on that, but debates on the definitions of agroecology. I just said a word on that. Debates on the performance of agroecology. For example, what is the methodology to assess the performances of agroecology if we compare, for example, to conventional agriculture? Do we take the good criteria, all the criteria? Do we transform, for example, an environmental issue in money, and so on? So we have a lot of debates on that, and we have also debates on on the transition, how to facilitate, to promote, to accompany the transitions toward agroecology, because we are in a situation A and we would like to go to a situation B, and it needs a transition period, and there are not only technical issues, but maybe I could say mostly social issues to make a consensus, to make a trade-offs of the different stakeholders involved in this transition. So we need a clarification on agroecology, because today there are a lot of effervescence, a lot of controversies, a lot of debates on agroecology, not only but at a different level. For example, in the scientific committee, you have a lot of debates. What is exactly agroecology? What is what are the main questions? The main scientific questions. Is a social dimension more important than technical issues and so on? Well, a lot of debates, and what we can see is that on the field, on the crop, we have, in spite of these debates, we have a transformation of the systems. If we do something or not, farmers are going on, and they are transforming their systems, and our aim is to help them not to take the wrong way, but to take the good way, and also to take into account different global changes. And I would like to stress on something that we know today for now 1 year and a half, is that, for example, ACP, you will see that, I could make a webinar on that, is virtuous against, for example, viral zoonosis. And so we have a lot of things to do, but anyway, the farmers are going on, and we have to accompany them, to give them solution and so on. For example, you have in Africa, at the bottom of the slide, you have some authors that say that agroecology is a dead end for African farmers, because they consider that it is a comeback to prehistory of agriculture. And really, agroecology is not that. Agroecology is a mix between, for example, you will see with augmentorium. Augmentorium is both old, very old technique, but it's a new technology, and with a lot of true values. And so there is not only one opinion to consider, but a lot of opinion. Okay, now to crop protection. You saw it was very quick introduction of agroecology, but Mathilde, maybe I can stop here and answer to questions if there is any questions on agroecology, or I can continue as you want.
Sorry. Yes, I think we have a question. Ruth.
Yes. Thank you for so far the interesting presentation. I just have to, in the previous slide, there was a word that I cannot place at all. Effervescence. What do you mean with that? Effervescence of donors and international institutions.
Effervescence, yes, it's a sorry, it's a French word. It means a lot of debates, controversy, opposite opinions, and a lot of energy put on where are we going to put the money? Are we going to put the money on agroecology? But in some countries, people say, for example, it's a dead end in Africa, or we put that in Southeast Asia with asset, for example. It means a lot of discussions, sometimes opposite, debates on from different actors, and mainly by donors or international institutions. Of course, I guess such as, for example, FAO. Is that okay?
But isn't that, my impression is that there is a convergence of opinions going on right now, or am I mistaken?
Sorry, I didn't hear very well, but you said that there is some mistakes.
No. My impression is that the opinions of the different donors and international institutions are converging. They're getting more together. More towards a consensus that let's say, agroecology is necessary. So that's why these differences of opinions as a need for clarification surprises me a bit.
Yeah, but well, if we have time to discuss on that, I think that when you have, I will propose, for example, a webinar on 60 years on IPM, if you are interested in. And if you want to change from a situation, for example, an old one, all the same for several decades, to another one, even if it's virtuous, you have a lot of work, and you have to discuss a lot, to have a lot of time for a transition and so on. And it's not easy because, for example, and you in the field of crop protection, you know that there are a lot of lobbies with a lot of inertia. And if you want, for example, to promote something that will result in a decreasing of sales of pesticide, for example, it's very difficult to make that move. It's why there are a lot of controversies, a lot of debates on agroecology, and we have to repeat that agroecology, it's the most important thing is agroecology today appears as a realistic alternative to the current unsustainable agriculture. And that is clear maybe for you, I don't know. That is clear for me, but it's clear for a lot of people, but it's not going towards their interest. If I am, for example, a pesticide seller, even if I know that agroecology is virtuous and can be good for the future of agriculture, I will try to say, be careful, and so on. So it's the idea of this slide. It's to say that. And I don't know if we have time to discuss that, but for example, in Africa, Africa, we say we don't need to do agroecology because agroecology is already the current way of agriculture. But if you see inside, for example, crop protection in Africa, you will see that there is a large increase of pesticides. Mostly of them are coming from China. They are generic pesticides. And even if you say, for example, Africa is too poor for pollute the planet, or Africa is already doing agroecology, or Africa, agroecology is a dead end for Africa, you will have a lot of people having different and opposite opinions. Just the idea I wanted to stress on.
Florent, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, but I mean, rapidly, I mean, Ruud, one of the constraints that we have, I mean, it's not a constraint, but let's say that is like this. We have also a lot of concept on the ground. And everyone is a little bit also pushing for his own concept, and obviously us, and also let's say, I mean, everyone around, I mean, the Ministry of Agriculture or whoever we are talking with, we can have also some difficulty to understand sometimes the difference that we can have between different concepts or between different, let's say, school. Like, I mean, we have climate smart, we have sustainable intensification, we have agroecology. So, yeah, I mean, it's a question of definition, it's a question of principle, and it's a question of objectives. But we have this one on the ground, and we have to deal with. But at the same time, we can see that agroecology also is moving. I mean, even at the national level in Cambodia. When CACIC was established, I mean, the main first idea of CACIC, it was obviously to build on the past experience on conservation agriculture. But at the end of the day, CACIC is also endorsing a much broader approach with agroecology, and this is good. And it's also for that I had this comment on the chat this morning, is that also within the NDC, so the nationally determined contribution of Cambodia, some initiative directly target agroecology, and it's a good sign. But as you say, obviously, we have always some controversies or talks ongoing between different concepts. And it's always like this.
Yeah.
Okay, good morning, Jim. I'm Philippe, Deputy Leader of TA Green Revolution in the root loop. Yeah, thank you for the presentation related to the agroecology concept. And actually, I'm new on agroecology, and I'm not sure on that, but as I remember, I can provide the definition. I remember myself that agroecology is the practice of the agriculture that focus on economic, social, and environmental. This is my remember that I always talk on that. But comparing to this session, you said that agroecology is the transition or the interrelationship between science, social, and practice, and this is the transition period. So the both that I mentioned is mentioned, or is the same, or it's different? Thank you. Maybe I confused. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for this question. I go to the slide. Try to go to the slide, which is this one.
Yeah.
Yes, this one is definition given not by me, but more than a decade ago by some authors, Wesel et al. And it's just to try to show, as you see in one slide, how can we consider agroecology? And when you say, for me, agroecology is a set of practices with three sustainable development pillars: social, economic, and environmental. You are right, but we can also consider, for example, if I am a scientist, of course I will try to develop agroecological practices, but I also have a scientific approach to develop these practices. And the same thing for social research to facilitate, for example, interaction between different actors, interaction between a technical system and a social system, and so on. And in the middle, the transition is just to say that everything is moving and everything is different from a country from another one. And so you are not confusing, you are right. But on the three pillars you were talking about, I will show that after. I would like to add to, I'm sorry, I have a feedback of sound. I don't know where it comes from, but it's difficult for me to talk because I I heard my voice twice. Anyway, I would like to add other issues than social, economic, and environmental issues. When you talk about that, these are not components; these are issues. We want to answer to challenges on a social point of view, on an economic point of view, and on an environmental point of view, which are the three main pillars of what we call sustainable development. For me, I would like to add two other issues, which are not often said and which are often forgotten, but which are very consistent with agroecology. Of course, the first one issue I would like to add is the ecological issue, because for me, environmental issue and ecological issue is not the same thing. I have some slides after to explain that, but ecological issue for me is to do the best to facilitate, to promote the good functioning of an agroecosystems. You see, it means that you have to optimize, for example, interaction between animal and vegetal communities. And environmental is not that. Environmental is to reduce the impacts, for example, of pesticide on the flora, on the fauna, on human, and so on. And the fifth issue I would like to stress is maybe the most important issue. It's the health issue, because I will give my personal opinion after on pesticide, but in some countries, which is the issue which makes moving the society and the use of pesticides is health. We know now that pesticides kills not only insects, pathogens, and so on, but also humans. And the commissions of the United Nations now consider that the EU pesticide is reliefs from the commissions of the human rights. So it means that if we understand, if we know, if the proofs are more and more numerous, the health issue is now important to have this transition between conventional, I could say, for example, in crop protection, use of pesticides, to sustainable, I could say, agroecological crop protection. So I think I have answered to your questions. You are right when you are talking about the 3 pillars, but that concerns issues. And in this diagram, I represent components, 3 components of agroecology. And in the practices, I agree with you. You are not wrong. You are right. We can find the social, economic, and environmental issues. Is that okay?
Philippe, I think we have to go ahead.
Yeah. But you know me, huh? They don't know me, but you know me. I'm able to spend one day on this slide, huh? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, Jean-Philippe, I'm Soti.
Sorry.
I'm Soti. I'm agroecological extension specialist. Yes, I understand well from your explanation, and just mention more. We will provide the training on agroecology to the PDA staff, and I think maybe we will use the same word, and we will bring what you are explaining here. It means we will thinking about the agroecology transaction, and compared to the what Bong Hiep provide the definition about the agroecology is have a 3 dimension. The first related to the social, the second related to the economical, and the third is related to the environmental. And we should use we will use the what you explain at the moment. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, beyond the words, I think we agree on the mentality and the philosophy of agroecology. But we have to share this diagnostic. We have to agree on that to go further, because if we don't share for example, the diagnostic that the diagnosis that the conventional agriculture is not sustainable, we have to stop and discuss on that, for example. Okay, I go ahead. Now for crop protection. Yeah, for crop protection, I have been working in crop protection for now 36 years around the world, and we have to ask the question: Do we need to protect crops? And of course, we need to protect crops, but it's an important question, because imagine, for example, that in some contexts you only lose, for example, 5 to 10% of the productions. We could consider that the need to protect crop is not evident, not relevant. But anyway, in most of the cases around the world, and I think, of course, in Cambodia too, yes, we need to protect crops because we lose a high percentage of yield of productions. And the point I wanted to stress on is that even with the crop protection, the current crop protection, I mean with pesticides, we lose a lot of yield and a lot of production. It's why I show this slide, just to say, for example, on the right of the slide, you have a photo on some fruit flies on a courgette, and for example, even you spray a pesticide on that, it will be completely ineffective. So I stress that even if we use pesticides, okay, it's good for the mind, because you say we can consider that we have done what we have to do. We sprayed pesticide, but we have also to say that in a lot of cases it's not effective. I do on one slide a very quick overview on crop protection, but it is very interesting because if we make an assessment on 60 years of what we can call IPM, Integrated Pest Management, we can say that the adoption of the true integrated pest management is not good everywhere in the world, in Europe, in America, in Africa, in Asia, and so on. I could develop that in another seminar if you want. But I would like to stress that for a long time ago, just after the Second World War, some American entomologists in California, in the United States, proposed some concept of crop protection. For example, at the end of the 40s, you have a concept called supervised control, which consists in monitoring pests in the field and make a decision, of course, according to spray or not to spray. And I think I am counting 80 years later. I think we are exactly at the same point, but maybe worse, because we use pesticide on a calendar, on a preventive calendar, and even if there is, for example, no pest in the field, we are satisfied to go in the field and to spray pesticides. After that, in the late of the 50s, we have another concept which aim to make biological control and chemical control compatible. And 70 years later, we can answer to this question. No, biological control and chemical control are not compatible. It's not coherent to use, for example, even within IPM framework, to use on one side some pesticide, and on the other side some biological control with, for example, beneficial releases or something like that. And in the 60s, you had a very important book written by Rachel Carson, an American woman, called Silent Spring. And 60 years later, we are at the same point. It means that we cannot hear birds because the quantity, the richness of birds has decreased a lot, and well, if we make an assessment, an objective assessment, we have not a very good increase. And it was the paradigm of integrated pest management in different parts of the world. Protection intégrée des cultures in French, manejo integrado de plagas in Spanish. You have terms in German and so on. Well, but it was a paradigm for 60 years, and the assessment is not good. And I recently have written a review on IPM, and I entitled this review IPM good intentions and hard realities. And for ACP, we have to take the lessons of the low adoption of true and realistic integrated pest management. A word, because we are talking about crop protection, I have to talk about pesticides. And for example, to talk about the results of IPM for now 60 years. And two or three quick photos on the increasing of the use of pesticide around the world. For example, here it's on the different continents, but you can have the same assessment. For example, yes, the recent data from the FAO say that at the global level, the consumption of pesticides has been multiplied by 2, from 2 million of tons of pesticide to 4 million of tons in only 2 decades. Same thing like my country, France, because in France we had a large plan to reduce the pesticide for now 13 years. And in spite of this plan, with a lot of money, a lot of action, a lot of energy, a lot of time and so on, the use of pesticide is still increasing. And for example, during the last decade, it has increased for 11%. And if we consider another criteria, for example, between 2008 and 2018, the consumption of pesticides has increased for 25%. But it's the same thing in developing countries. I talked before about Africa, and I could talk a lot of this part of the world, but even in sub-Saharan Africa, with developing countries, we have a important increasing of pesticide. For example, between the 90s and the 2000s, the consumption of pesticide has increased and has been multiplied by a factor of 3. So I go quite quickly like that, but it's just to stress that even if we talk about IPM for now 60 years, the pesticide around the world are continuing to increase. And I think you know that in our region, Southwest Asia, it's the same thing. So I don't want to spend time on that, but I can say something that we will use for ACP lessons. We had for IPM a plethora of definitions, as we talked before, and because there were a plethora of definitions, we have also a plethora of interpretations and a lot of plethora and a plethora of confusions in the fields, with which result in satisfactory adoptions. We saw that integration was not the good word in integrated pest management. We could say juxtaposed pest management or superposed pest management, but there is no integration of techniques. There is no integration of pests, of kind of pests and so on. And of course, of different techniques in the fields. And in most of the cases today, IPM is just to use pesticides. I could talk a lot, very long time on that. Is just to use pesticides, rational pesticides, and to add if we want some other techniques, but not to integrate them. And of course, the research is responsible in part of that. And the lobby of the pesticide sellers has played its roles, because now it's a lobby very well organized, and it's difficult to make it move. So I would like also to stress on the fact that from the first definition of IPM, we have lost some values, and one of the value of IPM was ecology. It was a root of IPM. It was to, for example, to make compatible biological control and chemical control. We lose that. We confuse ecology with ecologism. Ecologism, I use this term just to say it's more respect of environment. For example, in France, in my country, we have a Ministry of Ecology. I think we have to call this ministry Ministry of Ecologism or Ministry of Environment. It's not the same thing, as I told you before. And in spite of that, you have a lot of offers. I could say, for example, Altieri, for now more than 30 years, for a call of ecology in IPM, but without success. But we can see in the figure, for example, but maybe we are in an inflection, more interest in agroecology, less interest in IPM, and so on. So it's in line with what we are saying here. And my personal assessment of 60 years of IPM is that if we look not the short-term efficacy of pesticide, for example, I consider that for mid-term and long-term, pesticides are ineffective. And it has an appellation, a title. It's called the Infernal cycle of pesticide. More you use pesticide, more you have to use pesticide. Of course, you have a problem of the cost of pesticide and the financial dependence. You have impacts on the environment. I show a photo of an animal you cannot meet here. It's a white bear. It's just only because they are living in Arctic zone, and all the samples of urine or blood or fat matter of white bears contains pesticides. So it means that you have now pesticide everywhere in the world, even in the area where we don't use pesticides. I show also a slide of a bird. I told you about the silent spring of Rachel Carson 60 years ago, but that is, for example, a bird of my country. And when I was young, when I was a child, it was really common to see this kind of bird, and now it's completely difficult to see one of them. We have also health impacts. I think it's very important for us. Some are known, others are not known. And for example, you are well placed here in Cambodia, but me too in south of Vietnam to see the effects of what we call the orange agent during the Vietnam War about 50 years ago. And we have still 4 generations after, we have still some impacts on health, on on some babies. For example, we can say that there is a transgenerational impacts of the pesticide of orange agent is dioxin. So, well, we know some, but we are starting to know some other impacts on health. Of course, because I am an agroecologist, I am sensible to ecological dysfunctioning of ecosystems and global impact. So it's not a good assessment for IPM, and it's why I consider it's urgent to change the way. That is for crop protection. Maybe we can stop and have some questions on that if you want. After I start to talk about agroecological crop protection. Mathilde?
Yes, Ruth, you raise your hand. You have a question? Oh no.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
I should have loaded. I thought I did already. My apologies.
No problem. Okay, if there is no question, maybe you can go on, Jean-Philippe.
Okay. So now we can we can talk about agroecological crop protection after having some words on agroecology and crop protection, and you will see it's very easy. You have agroecology. Now we know what it is. We have crop protection. We know what it is, and of course, agroecological crop protection is the cross, the mix between agroecology principles and crop protection. So agroecological crop protection is not something else than applying agroecological principles to crop protection. And of course, crop protection, we understood before that it's an important issue for a farmer, for a country, for a food system, either for quantity, either for quality, and so on, that it's an important issue. So here I can represent ACP with different issues. The first is IPM with different problems that we met. I don't want to spend more time on that, and that conducts to dead ends on one of the 5 issues. So there is the 3 issues one person talked about before: social, economic, and environmental. These are the classical pillars issues of sustainable development, and we add health and ecological issues. And we can have, for example, ecological dead ends or health dead ends. We have global change, and we have already talked about that. I would like to stress something which is more and more important, maybe in some countries, in northern countries, is animal welfare, which now has to be taken into account when you are talking about health protection and so on. And I also would like to stress on it's not a concept, but it's something interesting. It's to talk about eco-socio system. Well, it's just to mix, social systems. It's to have interaction between different actors, for example, and ecology is the study of interaction between different communities. And the notion of eco-socio system is interesting because we have also to mix the social interactions of different actors and the ecological interaction between different communities, and that at different levels, from the plot, for example, to a territory. And of course, we have to choose or to go to the best trade-off, the best synergies between actors, between balances, between interactions. And I wrote also the word One Health, which is a concept more and more seated. which includes mostly human health, animal health, sometimes ecosystem health, but rarely crop health. And ACP can contribute to integrate in this concept the crop, the plant, even the soil health of agroecosystems. In this slide, you can see that agroecology faced to the 5 issues. Okay, we just have seen that. And for pesticides, reduction of pesticide, if we consider its aim, it will be a positive answer for addressing these 5 kinds of challenges. On a temporal scale, as I represented different concepts. Of course, agrochemistry, which was born after the First World War and that has been used after the second one, with IPM, with the use of pesticides in the 60s, as we said before. We have another concept, which is the Green Revolution, where we try to increase the productivity by using artificial inputs such as mineral fertilizers, pesticides, but also new varieties, water, and so on. And we can see in green agroecology. Agroecology was born in the 30s. And then it was so easy to use agrochemistry, but it's quite a recent concept, which was born now in the 80s or 90s. And as you can see, ACP, the declension of the agroecology principles to crop protection, is more recent than that, and it has less than maybe 10 years. So it's new, and we have to well understand this concept, but I don't want to say it's a new concept. It's just a good rational perspective. It's just to have agroecology developing in crop protection. Now I want to say a personal, not scientist, but a personal point of view. I can do that because I am 61, and before I am retired. I have a lot of work to do before, but I want to say what I think. And what I think is due to my experience. I have worked in Africa, in South Asia, in Indian Ocean, in Europe, in Pacific. And I have made a lot of visits around the world in most of the countries, and all that I've seen, it was the same thing. There is a use of agrochemical that we call IPM, and that conducts to dead ends in most of the cases. It's just a question of time. The question is not do we will have problems with pesticides. The question is when. Is it today, tomorrow, in 10 years, in 3 billions of years, and so on? Well, just that is a good question. And I saw the consequences of pesticide is everywhere the same. And my personal feeling is that I believe in agroecology, and as I said before at the beginning of this talk, I'm not a dreamer. I'm a man of action, and I believe in that, and we together we will show that it works. And at my age, I don't want also to continue to contribute to, for example, to the death of my brother around the world. Pesticides kill, and I don't want to anymore promote that. And in the region, I gave a word on that. I belong to an association. It's a French and Vietnamese association, but it concerns also Cambodian and Lao people working on the transgenerational consequences of orange agent I talked before. So that is a personal, not a scientist, but a personal opinion. And I want to say that because I think it's important to say that. For example, if you ask me a question on pesticide, I will do my best to answer, but I have no interest in this kind of field because I know it's a dead end and there is no interest in the future of agriculture. Okay, so that was the first part of my talk today. I have a same part in time for something more applied, such as implementation, for example. So Mathilde, I ask you, what do we do? Do we talk about the first part and we keep that for another webinar, or I go very quickly, but it's a pity because it's very interesting, and the end of this part is to say is to give a cooking recipe, you know, an instruction manual to practitioners. So I think it would be nice to have time to talk of that, and not to go very quickly to say, okay, we do that. We have to understand that. So what do you think?
Yeah, we have just 8 minutes left, so I think we cannot go very in detail. Maybe we can just have a discussion on this first part that you presented. And do you think that we can start our next meeting by this, before going more in detail about augmentorium?
No, personally, Mathilde, because I understood the context of Cambodia, of what for CAM and so on, and I prefer to show that we can talk about very practical techniques, and we can come back after that. Okay. For example, the third seminar could be that, but I want to show that I'm not that as ACP is not a dream, is not something theoretical, but of course we needed to talk about the principles of ACP. But for Wednesday, I think we can directly go to augmentorium, how to build an augmentorium, what is it for, and so on. Okay. If you agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. So we have already the subject of the third meeting. So is there any question or reaction about the last slide?
Oh, yeah, it's longer. Here, yes, I wanted to show that, Mathilde. It's just I wrote some topics like that.
Okay, okay. So it's
just ideas like that, and the most important maybe is the last line. If you have some topics that you wanted, I discuss. If I have the skills, of course, I'm open to that. But all the lines are topics that I can talk about if it represents an interest for the different participants.
Ruth?
Okay. Okay. So Philippe again, sorry. Yes, now we are discussing about the agroecology crop protection, and by the presentation, I see that it is come from integrated pest management. So integrated pest management is the long-term good, we can say, as you mentioned, this as usual. And then ACP, agroecological crop protection, this is the new terminology or new practice that that we want to introduce to the world. This is the new. Just my question is mean that crop protection in here, agroecology crop protection in here, maybe we focus on the crop. Like it means that we do something to protect the crop, but not for animal, not for something. I think. So the word integrated pest management still be popular because integrated pest management IPM is cover all, even livestock, even soil management or crop protection, something like that. Am I right?
Well, very good comments and questions. I have the responses to these questions in my so in the third webinar. Okay, agroecological crop protection can use old techniques, new technologies. It can use IPM techniques because IPM techniques, the techniques are good. The concept or the use of a concept is not good, but the techniques are good. For example, in IPM project, when you use, for example, insertion of biodiversity in agroecosystem, or if you use biological control or so on, it's these are good techniques and they work. But we have to use that not in the middle of nowhere. We have to use that in a certain order and with an ecological consistency. Well, so I will answer to that very precisely in a next webinar. Really, the word used are important. For example, integrated pest management. The words are not good. I told you integrated is not the good one because there is no integration. There is only juxtaposition. And pest, for me, and you know, I've been working in IPM, so I can say I make exactly the same mistakes. It's not to say, you know, it's not to say it's bad, but IPM is pest-centered. It means, for example, that you can do IPM. For example, here you have a slide of fruit flies. You can make IPM on fruit flies and nothing on another pathogen, which is very important and dangerous in the same field. So there is no integration also for the pests. And you saw for IPM, for example, it concerns a recent review showed that it concerns at 75% animal pests, such as animal pest. And so the word protection is not the best because it means that we are talking about the crop protection. But when we talk about that, and I will detail that the next time or the third time, we talk about crop protection, but also soil protection, biodiversity protection, landscape protection, and so on. And it's not only words, you will see. And we consider that in a certain order. I don't want to spend time to answer more in detail to your question, but it's a very good one, and I promise you that I will answer exactly and in details to these very good questions. And also in IPM, I would like to stress that integrated and management are two for me are two two words, they say exactly the same thing. Do you know management which does not include integration, or integration is not management? So it means that we have to consider the good words, and when we choose the agroecological crop protection words, we knew that protection is not the best, but it means it's better than management and better than pest, for example. And for us, when we define crop protection, you saw that it was including practices, but also social field, and of course, for the science include the set of disciplines. There are some pillars, and in the pillars you have two main pillars: the soils and the biodiversity. And for example, crop protection for me means protection of the soil, protection of the biodiversity, and of course, protection of the cultivated plants.
Jean-Philippe, I'm sorry, we have to stop now. We had two questions in the chat. One was about the difference between Ipm and Green Revolution. So I guess you will answer next session and how their effectiveness, economic, social, and environmental, compared to ACP or agroecology. So I will relay. I think you can see the question in the chat. I propose that we discuss that next time. And another one is more practical, is to have ACP in cashew nut agroecosystem for our next training. So I think it's possible.
Next webinar?
No, not for the next, but
yeah.
For another one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, because I prefer that we stop on time, so else we can discuss a long time. So I prefer that we stop for today.
I would like to, Mathilde, I would like to, yes, to apologize also, but because I'm in Southeast Asia, I am in a lockdown, alone in a room, in a hotel room. I cannot talk to nobody, so I talk too much, I know, but I'm so happy to to talk with you and everybody there. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I think that like that we can see that you are very passionate in the subject, and it's good. And so we can see that we can discuss every subject, and we can have a lot of exchange. So it's very good for.
I am available if anybody has a question, and I will answer by email with pleasure. When I am, yeah.
Oh, Florent, he wants to say something. Yeah,
no, not at all. No, not at all, Mathilde. But Jean-Philippe was saying that it was feeling alone and need to talk, so it's the same for me. Only for that I say, give me the mic, you know.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think for the next session we will try to organize so different trainings. So feel free by email to propose maybe, or we will discuss with Ruth about the time of the training. What do you think, Ruth? Can we go on with training at 9, or is it too early?
I think 9 is a good time for us, yes, but I'm just wonder whether 1 hour and a half is enough. Because I mean, yes, we see the reaction here and more people want to ask some questions. Could we possibly make it then from 8:30 to 10:30?
Yes, maybe we can go from 8:30 to 10:30. Yeah, I guess for me it's possible. So okay, we will organize the next date.
Sorry, some people want to.
No problem. But it is interesting session. It's new for me, but interesting. thank for establish this session.
So can I have a comment and
Yes,
suggestion? So I think the next the duration of the next session should be extended, because I'm sure that Jean-Philippe will have a lot of things to share with us, and it is be very useful for us to learn and then to apply based in our context. So I would suggest to extend the duration of the next session, please.
Okay. So we will try a session from 8:30 to 10:30 next time. But I think as we will have a lot of sessions, so it's good if it's not too long. So we keep it dynamic and we can think about our question for next session. So let's try like this, 2 hours next time, and we will plan for the next training also. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jean-Philippe. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much for organizing.
Yes, that's true.
Pleasure.
And so see you on Wednesday.
Okay, see you today.
Yeah, see you. Bye bye. Thank everyone.
Pleasure. Bye bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.